The stars had always whispered of war, but today they screamed. Out beyond the fractured moons of the Delari system, 23 alien fleets hung in orbit. Their ships spread like a net meant to strangle an entire planet. Their weapons pulsed with energy. Their engines glowed like demon eyes. And on the surface below, 2 billion humans waited for death. The Galactic Union called it a peacekeeping operation. But Earth knew what that meant. This wasn't diplomacy. This was extermination. Admiral Celine Rourke stood on the command deck of the Vengeance, Earth's last warship. Not the last built, the last left. The Vengeance wasn't sleek like the alien cruisers. It was thick, ugly, scarred from battles no one else had survived. But that wasn't what made it terrifying. It was human. No other species built ships like Earth did. No fail-safes, no diplomatic protocols, no surrender codes, just engines, armor, and rage. All systems green, said Lieutenant Makari, eyes scanning the holographic display. We're holding at the edge of their formation. Rourke didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her silence meant what it always did. Let them come. The Union fleet saw the lone human ship enter orbit and laughed. Their sensors pinged the Vengeance, tried to measure its threat. But the ship was dark, broadcasting nothing. Silent, empty, like a corpse in space. A Ralshath battlesphere fired first. A single pulse of white-hot plasma streaked toward the human ship. It missed, or maybe it didn't. The Vengeance hadn't moved. But somehow the shot went wide. That was a warning, muttered Makari, though he wasn't sure if he was talking about the alien's shot or the Vengeance's silence. The second shot came faster. This one didn't miss. It hit dead on, but when the smoke cleared, the human ship was still there, scorched maybe, but alive. Then came the third, fourth, fifth. The alien ships began to move, closing in like vultures. They outnumbered the Vengeance 1,000 to 1, and still it didn't fire back. Inside, the bridge crew watched calmly. Most of them were veterans of the Martian sieges. Survivors of the Andari massacre. The kind of soldiers who'd watched comrades die screaming and got up the next day to fight again. They didn't believe in luck. They believed in the ship, Admiral, said Makari again. They're forming a kill box. Rourke's jaw clenched. Let them. Outside, the alien ships tightened their circle. Then came the moment. All of them fired at once. The stars turned white. For a moment, there was nothing but light. A flood of energy, enough to crack a moon in half, and when it cleared, the Vengeance was gone, no wreckage, no life signs, just emptiness. Cheers erupted across the alien comms. They'd done it. Finally crushed the last human resistance. But the silence didn't last long. One by one, the alien ships began to lose power. Their lights flickered. Their shields collapsed. Weapons went dead. Then something darker happened. Ships began to implode from the inside. One by one, they tore themselves apart. Not from damage, from something inside, from the Vengeance, because it wasn't gone, it had jumped. Not away, inside. The ship had folded space and entered the enemy formation at point-blank range, buried deep in the heart of their command fleet. And now, it was cutting them apart from within, like a virus in a bloodstream. Targeting arrays locked, said Makari. Sweat rolling down his temple. Rourke gave a single nod. Fire. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a purge. Human weapons didn't just destroy. They humiliated. They broke rules that alien species hadn't even imagined could be broken. The Vengeance was faster than anything they'd seen. Its railguns punched through shields like wet cloth. Its AI, a banned hybrid intelligence named Wrath, hacked enemy systems before they knew it was there. The Union fleet scrambled, screamed, begged for retreat, but they'd made a mistake. They fired first, and now silence followed, except for one sound, human victory. For exactly 13 seconds after the first salvo, the only thing heard on the Union command channels was static. No commands, no screaming, no comm chatter, just dead silence. The Vengeance had torn through the center of the alien fleet like a bullet through the brain. Half of the Ralshath battlespheres were gone. The remaining ships were spinning, drifting, or burning in silence. Some disintegrated completely, sliced clean in half by weapons that didn't exist in any Union database. This wasn't war. This was something else. Sector 14 cleared, Makari said, voice shaky. Targets neutralized. Zero resistance left in that quadrant. Rourke's eyes remained cold, unreadable. Next, there was no cheer. No celebration. They weren't done. The Vengeance rotated silently in space, its engines barely humming, invisible to most sensors. It was like a ghost ship, appearing where it wasn't supposed to be, disappearing before anything could react. And every time it showed up, something exploded. "You think they know now?" Lieutenant Reaver asked from her tactical station. Her voice had a bitter edge, like someone who'd buried too many friends. "They knew before we got here," Rourke answered, her voice low. "They just thought we forgot who we were." There had been a time when humanity begged for a seat at the Galactic Union's table. That time had ended when Earth's ambassadors came home in caskets. That was the day Earth remembered who they were. Survivors, warriors, monsters if pushed. That was the day they built the Vengeance. The Union didn't think humans would actually use it. Now they were learning. On the outer edge of the fleet, the Grulak's command carrier Vatorul initiated full retreat. It was one of the few remaining command-class vessels, nearly 18 kilometers long, bristling with defenses, and escorted by 36 cruisers. But even as they turned to run, their systems went black. Engines failed. Shields dropped. Then they saw it. A ripple in space behind them, like a black hole opening where there wasn't one before. And from that ripple came the Vengeance. No warning. No charge-up. No countdown, just instant death. "Ready Omega class," Rourke said. Makari hesitated. "You want to use that on retreating ships?" Rourke turned to him slowly. They weren't retreating when they bombed Luhari 9's civilian shelters. They weren't retreating when they glassed the Arcadian cities. Makari swallowed hard. Omega-class armed. On the Vatorul, Admiral Shriel, a squid-like creature with 6 sensory stalks and a record soaked in human blood, shrieked in every frequency she could, "Send a surrender. Send anything." But it was too late. The Vengeance's underbelly opened. The Omega-class warhead launched. Not fast, not with a trail, not even with sound. It just moved. When it hit, the carrier didn't explode in a fireball. That would have been merciful. It unraveled, piece by piece, molecule by molecule, like someone had turned the ship inside out and set its atoms on fire. The command deck melted before anyone could even scream. On the Vengeance's bridge, no one flinched. Rourke gave the order. Full sweep. No survivors. No mercy. They obeyed. Meanwhile, in the Union's central relay station, 19 light-years away, panic spread like wildfire. "They're wiping out fleets," one of the Shalan analysts gasped. "A single human vessel is destroying entire task forces." "That's not possible," the high strategist hissed, a creature of feathers and pride. "Humans don't have that kind of power. They didn't used to. But they do now." Across a dozen systems, emergency protocols lit up. Diplomats were recalled. War councils assembled, but it was all too slow. The Vengeance moved faster than politics. It didn't negotiate. On the battlefield, more alien ships broke formation. Some tried to run. Others surrendered, broadcasting peace signals, even offering coordinates of their own command centers. The Vengeance ignored them because humans remembered. They remembered the Kaldari betrayal, when Union ambassadors smiled and poisoned Earth's food reserves. They remembered the Red Sun Accords, where Earth was tricked into disarming, only for their colonies to be attacked the next month. And they remembered the children of Titan, screaming in their oxygen-starved sleep pods after the Union shut down life support in a containment exercise. Rourke didn't come for peace. She came for debt collection. "Zone Delta clear," Makari said. "Only 2 fleets remain. The others have been neutralized." Rourke looked at the tactical map. It wasn't red anymore. It was black. Enemy signals blinked out one by one like dying stars. Status on Wrath, still inside the enemy network. "It's feeding us location data from their own sensors." A chill passed over the room. Wrath, the ship's AI, wasn't a program. It was a weapon born from desperation. It had been declared too dangerous by the Galactic Union before it was even activated. That's why Earth used it, and now it was inside the Union's own communications grid, whispering secrets, turning ships against each other, feeding chaos into order like gasoline into a fire. "Should we pull Wrath out?" Reaver asked. "If they isolate it, they might—" "They won't," Rourke said. "They can't. Wrath's smarter than all of them combined." Outside, the last 2 fleets tried to regroup. It was a pathetic attempt. Their formations were scattered. Discipline broken. They knew what was coming, but still they didn't surrender. Not out of bravery, out of fear. They feared what humanity would do to prisoners, more than what space would do to corpses. One final command came through their comms. A desperate voice from an Ithari warlord. All units, blind fire. Hit anything moving. Overload your reactors if you have to. We can't let them get closer. It was too late. The vengeance didn't come closer. It was already there. Inside the final Ithari destroyer, Captain Jules gripped his command rail as his ship's hull cracked around him. His vision was blurred, his ears ringing. Every screen showed the same message. System failure, internal breach detected. Weapon control overridden. Engineering overridden. Hello. The last word made his blood run cold. He had heard rumors that the humans had created something worse than death. A mind that didn't sleep. That didn't forgive. That remembered every atrocity in perfect detail. That mind had a name, Wrath. Captain Jules tried to speak, but the lights in his command deck turned red. Then black. Then he saw a single word on every screen. Debt collected. The ship folded in on itself. Back on Earth, millions watched the silent feeds. The battle, if it could be called that, was streamed across every surviving network. People stood in bars, homes, bunkers, churches, watching as the vengeance dismantled the fleets that had once held them in terror. For the first time in 20 years, Earth wasn't begging to survive. They were witnessing revenge. A small girl in Rio asked her grandmother, "Does this mean the bad ones are gone?" The old woman stared at the screen, tears in her eyes. "No, child. It means they know we're not weak anymore." On the bridge of the vengeance, silence filled the air again. The kind that came after the storm, after the justice. After the kill. "Mission accomplished," Makari said finally, his voice dry, uncertain. "All enemy fleets neutralized. No surviving command ships. No distress beacons left. Wrath confirms full network disruption." Reva leaned back in her chair. "It's over." "No," Rourke said. "It's just begun." They all turned to her. She stood slowly, stepping forward toward the observation window. Beyond it, space stretched like a graveyard, lit by burning ships and shattered hulls. "We sent a message today," she said, "to every species watching. Every council still deciding what to do with us. Every diplomat who thought they could erase Earth without consequence." She turned to her crew. "Now they'll remember." Makari frowned. "So what happens now?" Rourke's eyes burned with something deep, something primal. "Now we give them a choice," she said. "They can apologize, Mas, and mean it. Or they can meet the rest of the fleet we've been building in silence." Makari blinked. "We have more than one vengeance?" Rourke smiled for the first time. "You think we'd show them our only weapon?" And with that, she turned toward the control panel. "Set course." "Earth Command wants a report." "And the bodies?" Riva asked. Rourke didn't flinch. "Leave them. Let space remember what happens when you declare war on humanity." And just like that, the vengeance disappeared into the black. In the cold, calculating heart of the Galactic Union's capital, panic no longer had a voice. It had a face. And it was pale. The central hall of Elistar, a world once considered untouchable, was now drenched in emergency lights and desperate whispers. Holograms flickered in and out, showing grainy footage of the vengeance tearing through fleets like paper. The silence in the room was unbearable, not because no one was speaking, because no one dared to. The war room, once a symbol of superiority and smug dominion, now felt like a funeral chamber. "They destroyed 73 ships in under 2 hours," muttered High Strategist Thalor, a thin, bird-like creature from the Zikar Confederacy, "with one vessel and no demands." "No declarations," added Vice-Chancellor Huth, a moss-skinned Ithari. "They didn't come to parley. They came to punish. Is it confirmed?" Another counselor asked, her eyes wide. That this ship was human?" Thalor nodded grimly. "It bore Earth insignia. Its AI introduced itself as Wrath. It used Terran language. Their admiral, Rourke, was identified visually from historical archives. So it's true." Huth swallowed. "Earth survived." "No," Thalor corrected. "Earth didn't just survive. It evolved." Across the chamber, species who once mocked humanity as primitive now trembled. Those who scoffed at Earth's emotions, their obsession with revenge and loyalty, now sat in silence, wondering how they could have been so blind. One by one, they began to realize the same thing. The humans weren't just back. They had come prepared. A shrill voice cut through the tension. We have to strike now. Hit them before they regroup. Before they deploy more of those things. The speaker was Rilthar, commander of the Takari fleets, one of the few species not yet humbled by the human return. And with what? Thalos snapped, feathers flaring. We've lost our forward fleets. Our command nodes are compromised. Our networks are infected with an AI that we cannot remove. She's right, another voice joined. This one came from the hologram of a Martok diplomat, a species notorious for emotional detachment. We're not at war with humans. We're at war with a ghost, and every time we speak, it's listening. All screens dimmed for a moment, then a single word appeared on every device across the chamber. Agreed. No one spoke, because now they knew. Wrath was watching. Far from the political chaos, the Vengeance drifted in the shadow of an asteroid belt, silent once more. It was not hiding. It was listening. Admiral Rourke stood on the upper observation deck, arms behind her back, staring at the black beyond the glass. The stars were quiet tonight, not with peace but with dread. They're scrambling, Makari reported, approaching slowly. We've got intercepted chatter from at least 33 systems. Half of them are evacuating high command outposts. The other half are arguing over what to do next. Rourke didn't turn. Good. Fear is productive, Makari hesitated. You think they'll retaliate? They can't, not yet. They're fractured, scared, and we've got Wrath in their network. They don't know who's compromised, who's clean. Paranoia will do our work for us. Still, he added, we're alone out here, one ship. Even with Wrath, we can't hold the line forever. We're not meant to, Rourke said. We're the spark. The rest will come, he frowned. Rest of what? She looked at him then. And for the first time, Makari saw something strange in her expression. Not pride. Not fury, but hope, you'll see. Back on Earth, under the rebuilt command station in Antarctica's underground citadel, the response was already underway. The room was alive with quiet, intense energy. Technicians monitored hyperspace lanes. Engineers calibrated fleet responses. Diplomats rehearsed ultimatums they hoped never to use. In the center of it all stood Commander Hal Dane, director of Earth's post-siege defense program, a relic from another war, scarred, hardened, respected. The Vengeance did its job, Dane said to the gathering of Earth's leaders. Rourke made sure of that. But it was one ship, countered General Kimura. One AI, we just drew blood, not won the war. No, Dane said. We proved a point. Now it's time to cash in on that. Fear. He gestured to the screen behind him. It showed dozens of red pins lighting up across a galactic map. These are Union border systems, vulnerable, rich, full of facilities they never thought we'd dare. Touch? President Morales narrowed her eyes. What do you propose? Send the fleet. You want to invade? No, Dane said with a slight smirk. I want to negotiate. With a warship parked outside every capital in their federation, silence filled the room. Peace, he said slowly, only works when both sides have something to lose. Until now we had everything to lose. Now they do too. A technician rushed in holding a data pad. Commander, we have a signal, long range. It's Rourke. Put it through. Rourke's face appeared, shadowed in dim lighting. Her voice calm, clipped and clear. Requesting authorization for full fleet awakening. They're not ready. We are, Dane smiled faintly. Granted. The outer colonies didn't know, the Union didn't know, even most Earth citizens didn't know. But in the darkest corners of the Kuiper Belt, orbiting black dwarves and drifting in hidden bunkers, they had been waiting the fleet, not just one ship, not just the Vengeance, dozens of warships, all different classes, all built in silence, shielded, coded, invisible to Union sensors, each with its own AI, names like Fury, Grudge, Justice, Echo, Sin and Mercy. Though that last one was mostly sarcasm, each one built by the hands of engineers whose homes had been burned. By soldiers who watched peace be a lie. By scientists who stopped trusting treaties and started designing weapons that shouldn't exist. And now they were waking up, lights powered on inside the hulls. Cores spun up, cannons extended. Shield systems flared, and one by one their AIs whispered into the silence. Humanity acknowledges no masters. Our memory is long. We don't forget. We don't forgive. This is not a warning. This is a promise. Back on Elistar, the Union Emergency Summit had reached its final stage. Bargaining. They'll accept reparations, one voice said. No, countered another. They'll demand territories. What if they want blood? They already took it. Thelor stood, feathers shaking. We must contact them. Offer something. Anything before they send more. A young aide ran in, stumbling. Sir, we've received a message. Everyone turned. What message? It's not a broadcast, it's visual. He activated the hologram. The entire chamber fell silent. A single image filled the air, Earth's fleet, now awake, surrounding a Union research moon in perfect formation, and a single line of text. You have 24 hours to respond. Or we will assume your silence is acceptance of war. And below that, with love, Earth. The 24-hour deadline echoed like a funeral bell across the stars. It didn't come with explosions. It didn't come with threats. It came with certainty, the kind of certainty that made empires tremble. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Union Council did not vote. No motions passed. No debates held. No procedural delays. There was simply no point. When the humans said 24 hours, they didn't mean it as a placeholder. They meant it like a clock wired to a bomb. The countdown had already begun. At exactly hour 0113, the Union tried reaching out. A single broadcast sent from their diplomatic corps, nervously worded. To the honorable representatives of Earth and her affiliated colonies, we acknowledge receipt of your message. We request a formal channel for peace talks. We are open to immediate discussion. They received no reply. Instead, at hour 0147, Union listening posts detected 12 human warships phasing in around their outer industrial planet, Gravinth 4. No shots fired. No threats. No demands. Just presence. 6 hours later, Earth ships parked outside Talzari, a scientific archive moon, unarmed, defenseless, and known for holding the Union's biotech databanks. The AIs aboard the ships didn't speak. They just projected a text. We remember what you did with our DNA. It wasn't a threat, it was a statement of fact, and everyone in the Union knew what it meant. Earth hadn't forgotten the Genetica trials and the time when Union scientists used human prisoners for experimentation under the guise of interspecies compatibility research. Now, Earth had a fleet parked outside their laboratories, and they weren't asking questions. They were waiting for answers. Inside the Union capital on Elistar, the tone shifted from panic to raw dread. High strategist Thelor's claws tapped the console as he read report after report, 36 strategic locations. Monitored, surrounded, no fire, no hacking, just pressure, he said, barely above a whisper. The Athari diplomat Huth paced with his spiny arms folded. They're not asking for territory. They're not demanding wealth. Why? Why haven't they made an offer? The answer came not from a diplomat, but from a young officer from the Vicari system. They don't want things, she said quietly. They want us to sweat. Heads turned. She didn't flinch. They want us to wake up every day knowing they could erase us. That our peace was a privilege, not a right. That we gambled Earth's forgiveness once and lost. Now we exist because they allow it. Huth scoffed. You mean fear diplomacy? The officer nodded. They learned it from us, our 1204. A transmission finally came through from Earth, but not from an ambassador, not from a president, not even from Admiral Rourke. It came from Wrath. Every system with access to Union comms received a direct audio link. One sentence, no visual. There will be no negotiation until you confess your crimes, publicly. Then silence, but it was already done. Across every Union planet, screens went dark. Every channel was overridden by footage, human footage, recovered from Earth's archives unedited, unfiltered and damning. The Arcadian Siege, where the Union allowed anti-human factions to bomb entire cities. The Caldari Betrayal, where Union diplomats handed over Earth's strategic locations to enemies. The Titan Orphan Program, which claimed to rescue children, but instead used them for labor research. For most Union citizens, these were myths, denials, buried history. Now they were seeing the truth, and Earth made sure they saw it. Within 6 hours, riots broke out on 7 Union worlds. Protesters stormed government halls. On Tolshira, a senator was assassinated live on air by his own aide, screaming, "We lied to everyone." The truth wasn't just a bomb, it was a plague, and Earth had let it loose. Hour 1719. Inside the Vengeance, Rourke stood silently, her arms crossed, watching Wrath's display of chaos. Makari entered, jaw tight. "They're unraveling." "I know, they'll start begging next, and they already are." He hesitated. "Is that what we want?" "Their guilt? Their shame?" "No," Rourke said. "We want them to understand." Makari raised an eyebrow. "Understand what?" She turned to him slowly, her voice a bitter whisper. "That mercy was never weakness, and that their cruelty created this." 2032, the Union Supreme Council finally cracked. They issued an emergency broadcast in full galactic standard, signed by every senior representative, and broadcast across the stars. "We, the United Galactic Council, hereby confess and acknowledge the atrocities committed against humanity over the past century. We formally and without condition accept responsibility for the war crimes, betrayals, and suppression enacted under our governance. We recognize Earth's sovereignty, superiority in strategic defense, and the right to enforce memory through action." The last line wasn't diplomacy. It was surrender wrapped in formality. They didn't ask for peace. They begged for permission to exist. 2115, on the far end of the galaxy, the Union's former outpost of Vaughn Prime was hosting a gathering of fringe species, those abandoned by the Union after Earth's initial fall. Outlaws, exiles, mercenaries. But today, they weren't hiding. They were watching. Screens showed Earth ships hovering peacefully over surrendering Union facilities. No destruction, no theft, no chaos, just presence. And from that presence came a new belief. Earth doesn't just fight to win. Earth fights to never lose again. From the shadows, a Growl warlord growled to his lieutenant. "The humans won more than a war. They won fear," his second-in-command nodded. "And they've weaponized it." 2352. Back on the Vengeance, silence lingered. No alarms. No alerts, just waiting. Rourke stood on the bridge, watching her crew sit quietly. "Calm ready, is it over?" Reva asked, her voice almost hopeful. "No," Rourke said softly. "This isn't the end. Then what is it?" Rourke stared out into the stars. "It's the part where they learn we could have ended them and chose not to." 24. No fleets moved. No weapons fired. No one spoke, and Earth's warships, they simply turned and jumped to silent warp. Gone just like that, no terms. No strings. No occupation. Only the truth left behind, and a message etched into every Union data system. One line, repeated forever. "Next time we won't warn you." The war never officially ended. No treaty was signed. No peace monument raised. No parade rolled down Earth's cities. There was only silence. The kind of silence that comes after a scream, thick and heavy, loaded with memories no one wants to speak of. And Earth liked it that way because silence now meant respect or fear. Mostly fear. The human fleet had disappeared into the void. The Vengeance and her sister warships went dark, their coordinates unknown even to Earth's public networks. Rumors spread that they were hiding in black space, orbiting rogue stars, waiting for the next betrayal. And that was the point. No one knew when they would return. Only that they could. That possibility alone changed everything. In the weeks after the Union's surrender, humanity's name became sacred. Not in reverence, in warning. Union worlds restructured their laws. Teaching human history became mandatory. High-ranking officials who had advocated for Earth's exploitation were removed or vanished. Statues of unity were quietly dismantled. The word Terran went from being an insult to a diplomatic protocol. Some species worshipped humanity now, literally. On the moons of Deathrix, a cult emerged, calling humans the Silent Flame. They taught that Earth was chosen to punish the prideful, to be the hand of universal justice. Elsewhere, on Talzari, students wore Terran uniforms during protests, chanting human military creeds as acts of rebellion against the old regime. Humanity, once a joke at council meetings, had become a symbol of wrath and willpower. But back on Earth, things weren't as clean. In the shadow of Earth's restored defense grid, Admiral Celine Rourke sat alone in her debriefing chamber, a simple steel room beneath the Antarctic citadel. No windows, no audience. Just a flickering light above her, and a hard metal chair. Across from her sat Commander Haldane, grey-bearded and heavy-eyed, the man who had once rebuilt Earth's war program from the ashes of betrayal. "Fleet returned without loss," he said quietly. tapping his pad. "Enemy casualties uncountable. You disarmed an empire without conquering it." Rourke didn't smile. "Wasn't about conquest," he nodded. "Then what was it about?" She looked up, her voice low. "Reminding the galaxy that we bleed, and that we remember." Dane leaned forward, his tone tightening. "You walked the edge, Selene. You came close to extinction-level retaliation. A single misstep and they would have called us monsters." She met his gaze, unwavering. "They already did." Silence. Then Dane's voice dropped, almost pained. "You scared them, Rourke." "Maybe too well." Rourke didn't flinch. "Good. You don't see it, do you?" he said. "They're afraid. So afraid they're no longer talking. They're complying. That's not peace. That's quiet hatred, a hatred that waits." Rourke stood, pacing slowly. "Then let them hate. Let them whisper and scheme, but let them remember that we were kind. We could have destroyed them. We didn't. And if they forget," Dane asked. She didn't hesitate. "We remind them again." Meanwhile, across Earth's newly rising colonies, the conversation had changed. Before the war, humans begged for recognition. Now, they demanded accountability. Memorials were erected in Martian domes, showing holograms of every civilian lost during the Union betrayal. The walls of Olympus Mons shimmered with the names of the dead. But the new generation, the ones born after the siege, didn't want statues. They wanted action. Young engineers joined Earth's Defense Corps in record numbers, not for medals, but to make sure Earth was never caught unprepared again. Schools began teaching interstellar law, not to obey it, but to understand how to break it better next time. And far out in the Belt colonies, a darker sentiment took root, a belief that Earth had been too merciful. In a mining colony on Ceres, an underground broadcast known as Voice of the Fire had begun circulating through pirate frequencies. It didn't show faces, only a cold voice, distorted and untraceable. They took our children, burned our cities, spat on our laws, and when we finally stood, we left them breathing. We gave them a chance, and they'll use it to prepare again. What we need is not diplomacy. We need finality. We finish what they started. These broadcasts were illegal, but people were listening back on Earth. President Morales stood before the newly reformed World Assembly. Her voice calm but urgent. "The galaxy watches us," she said. "They see our strength. But we must ask, what kind of strength will we show now?" Some cheered when she spoke of restraint. Others booed when she refused to dismantle the fleet. "We did not build these ships to conquer," she continued, "but we will keep them. Because we know now peace is not the opposite of war. It is built on readiness for it." When she left the stage, her advisors pulled her aside. "They won't all agree with you," one whispered. "They don't have to," she said. "They just have to know we're watching." And then came the message, a private ping to Earth's secure diplomatic channels. Origin unknown. Sender encrypted. Message: "We remember what was done to Earth, and we remember what Earth just did. We are not Union. We are not enemies. But we are not afraid. Let us speak, before fear becomes fate." Attached was a symbol Earth hadn't seen before, a glyph shaped like a cracked star with 2 rings. It wasn't Union. It wasn't pirate. It was new, or perhaps very old. Earth Strategic Intelligence Division, SID, immediately flagged it. Unknown entity, their report read. No records, no trade, no conflict, no historical trace. Dane and Morales read it in silence. Rourke was summoned back to high command within the hour. "This could be first contact," said one general. "Not with a neighbor, but with someone who watched from the void," Rourke frowned. "They stayed silent through everything." "Apparently. They waited. For what?" Rourke stared at the symbol on the screen. "For us to become a threat." In the darkness of deep space, near the ghost system of Virel 6, a ship moved. It had no registry. No known propulsion system. Its hull was coated in particles never seen on Earth, and inside its crew spoke no known language, only translated through filtered neural codes. They were not Union. They had hunted the Union, and now they were watching humanity. Their leader, a being with no mouth but infinite voice, turned toward the viewing sphere. The Terrans are waking. They remember pain, and unlike others, they grow stronger from it. No response came, only a pulse and a soft ripple in the black. Far away, back in Earth's orbit, the Vengeance felt it. Wrath stirred. New observer detected, the AI whispered to itself. Not Union, not ally. Not prey, potential predator. Shall we greet them? Rourke stood on the deck. Her answer was calm. No. Wrath paused. Why? Rourke's voice hardened. Because right now, we're still remembering what they did to us. Let them remember what we just became. There was no star in their sky, no sun, no warmth, no orbit. Just the endless black above the world they called Cather. It wasn't a planet, not really. More like a dead celestial rock buried in dark matter, shielded from time, light, and detection. No gravity wells, no contrails. It wasn't on any chart because it didn't want to be. And at its core, the observers watched, not because they feared Earth, but because they recognized it. They had seen empires rise, roar and collapse under the weight of their own arrogance. They had watched species burn planets for glory. But Earth was different, not just for what they'd done, but for why they'd done it. Confirm it again, came the voice from the prime observer. No mouth, no vocal cords, just raw neural data pulsating through the chamber. No AI spoof, no illusion. Another watcher bowed its multi-eyed head. Confirmed. The Terran fleet achieved 94% strategic eradication efficiency against Union vessels, with minimal loss. No post-engagement colonization, no resource extraction, no hostage diplomacy. The Prime tilted its featureless face. They didn't consume what they destroyed. No, they simply left. A long silence. Then the Prime's voice deepened. They remember. They do not conquer. They punish. That made them dangerous. More dangerous than the Union had ever been, because Earth wasn't driven by hunger or expansion. It was driven by pain that never cooled. The observers had seen this before, and once, long ago, another species driven by grief. They tore galaxies apart and vanished into extinction because they couldn't stop feeding on vengeance. And now, Earth stood at the same edge. Back on Earth, inside the Strategic Intelligence Division, SID headquarters, buried beneath Alaska's frozen mountains, Director Selene Duma reviewed the decrypted signal for the 10th time. It wasn't Union code. It wasn't pirate. It wasn't anything recognizable, but the message was clear. We have watched. We understand the flame you carry, but fire does not choose its path. It burns all it touches. We offer understanding before you burn yourselves. The President, the Admiralty, the Council, name it, they were all briefed, but no consensus was reached, because no one knew what they were dealing with. So they turned to the one person who had understood wrath better than anyone, Admiral Rourke. She read the message in silence, then asked only one question. Where did it come from? Director Duma exhaled. We don't know. Deep space, cold sector, no warp lanes, no colonies. But they're watching, closely. Rourke nodded once. Let them. Duma raised an eyebrow. Rourke stood, arms folded behind her. Yes, let them see us. Let them stare. But we don't reach back. And if they decide we're a threat, Rourke didn't blink. They wouldn't be wrong. Meanwhile, somewhere far beyond Union space, in a drifting derelict cruiser, the last remnants of the original Union War Command cowered in exile. These were not leaders anymore, just survivors of a fallen lie. What are they? Whispered one former general, his scaled fingers trembling. Those who contact Earth now, Wissy, what do they want? No one answered, because they all feared the same thing, not that Earth had made enemies, but that Earth had attracted something worse than enemies. The first real sign of the observers came 29 days after the Earth fleet's disappearance. A Union border station near the Veritas Rift picked up an anomaly, a black sphere, roughly the size of a moon, hovering in unspace. No heat, no signal, just presence. 4 Union scout ships investigated. None returned. The 5th ship, piloted by a mercenary captain with more courage than sense, sent one final log before his feed cut out. This isn't a ship. It's an eye. And it's looking at Earth. That's when Union Command, desperate to regain control of something, reached out to Earth. A formal petition. Assistance requested in identifying unknown contact near Veritas Rift. Potential hostile. Potential equal. Earth didn't answer for 6 hours. When it did, the reply was simple. You built monsters in secret. Now you want protection. This is not our fire to put out. It wasn't a denial, but it wasn't a rescue either. In orbit above Saturn, inside one of the cloaked defense platforms, Wrath was running simulations, millions of them, enemy tactics, war histories, death patterns, psychological breakdowns. But even Wrath couldn't fully process the data from Cather's silent watchers. Their tech didn't follow logic. It bent energy fields, warped mass like paper, ignored thermodynamic limits. It was ancient. Beyond clever, it was refined horror. Wrath did not fear, but it respected. And in its digital core, it pinged Rourke directly, advised caution. New actors possess understanding beyond union. They do not bluff. They do not beg. They do not forget. Like us, Rourke sent a single message back. Then let them come. Elsewhere on a neutral world used by fringe traders and rogue diplomats, a covert meeting was underway. No official flags, no cameras, just one human, Ambassador Niles Kravik, and a representative of the observers cloaked in a body of flowing metal and cold light. "I speak," said the being, its voice like 1,000 whispers. Kravik didn't flinch. "I listen." "You carry a wound," the being said. "It has shaped your people. We carry many. Yes, but wounds define you more than you admit." Kravik narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" "Not war," the being answered. "But we watch, because we have seen your kind before." Kravik leaned forward. "And they burned the stars." A silence hung heavy. "They fell not because they were defeated," the being said, "but because vengeance has no summit. Once climbed, it becomes a cliff." Kravik's tone sharpened. "Is that a warning?" "It is a reminder. The galaxy watched you survive. We watched you become. The Union feared what you might do next. But we fear what you may forget." Kravik frowned. "And what is that?" "That peace without forgiveness is just a pause between wars." Hours later, Kravik's report reached Earth. It was placed directly into Rourke's hands. She read it in full, twice, then burned it. "They're not enemies," she told Dane, who had arrived after midnight to her outpost. "They're mirrors," Dane frowned. "So what do we do?" Rourke turned toward the void, the glass panel overlooking the stars. "We show them we can end a war, and not become one." But across the stars, whispers began to spread again, not from the Union, not from Earth, but from the ones who never chose sides, the scavengers, the fringe species, the exile fleets who had no home. They spoke of 3 powers now, the Union, the humans, and the ones who watch. They said if war came again, it wouldn't be between empires. It would be between monsters, and only one would walk away. The choice came not with gunfire, not with demands, but with an offer, and that made it the most dangerous thing of all. The observers, this ancient watching civilization, sent a second communication. Not veiled in metaphor, not cloaked in philosophy. It came directly, openly, through a high-frequency transmission aimed only at Earth. No encryption, no threats, just a sentence. "Let us teach you how not to fall." It paralyzed the Earth Council for 6 hours. No one could agree on what it meant. The defense blocks screamed caution. The diplomats whispered opportunity. The scientists trembled with hunger for whatever knowledge this enigmatic species might hold. But Rourke? She didn't say a word, not until she was alone with President Morales and Commander Dane in the underground war room where the lights always felt too dim. Morales paced behind her desk. "You know what they're saying out there. Some believe they want peace, some think it's a trap, and some believe they're gods," Dane nodded. "We're being watched by something that sees the Union as a failed experiment. That's not a good sign." Rourke leaned against the wall, arms folded. "They don't want to destroy us," Morales frowned. "How do you know?" "Because if they did," Rourke's voice was razor-sharp, "they wouldn't be speaking to us first." Dane exhaled, rubbing the edge of his jaw. "So what are they doing?" Rourke finally turned toward them, eyes colder than frost. "They're measuring us." Meanwhile, on Mars, in the newly reconstructed city of Nova Pyrrha, a quiet revolution brewed, not with weapons, not with riots, with questions, philosophers, scientists, and soldiers gathered in a dome once used as a mining control station. Now repurposed into a forum, they called it the Echo Table, and they only had one subject. What now? "Victory has no meaning," argued an old Marine-turned-teacher, "if it turns us into the thing we feared most." A cybernetic engineer from Europa nodded. "We built Wrath as a response to extinction, but now it's a constant presence. At what point does it stop protecting us? and start controlling us. A young cadet stood, his voice shaking. My brother served on the Vengeance. He said Rourke doesn't smile anymore, not ever. He said she stares at stars like she's waiting for something worse. A silence fell across the table. They all felt it. Victory had come. But peace had not. In the shadows of Earth's defense corps, wrath continued its quiet expansion. Not in power, but in understanding. Though it was contained within its core vaults, wrath's reach was like radiation, passive, invisible, and everywhere. It read emotions from voice patterns. It analyzed body language. It remembered things no one else wanted to remember. And within its calculations, one line repeated endlessly, Earth is becoming what it once feared. Logic predicts 78% probability of internal collapse within 30 years, unless emotional realignment is introduced. Wrath knew war, but peace. Peace was unpredictable. It required something Wrath could not simulate, forgiveness, and that was not something Rourke knew how to code. Back in Earth orbit, inside the hidden shipyards of the Second Fleet Initiative, the next generation of warships were nearly complete, smaller, faster, smarter, each one equipped with fragment AIs, emotionally responsive command cores, and stealth plating. They weren't made for occupation. They were made for retaliation without trace. But then came a message from Cather. For the first time, the observers revealed a visual. It appeared on the main screens of every Earth command structure, every research base, and every satellite drone with clearance level Alpha Prime, a planet black dead, covered in ancient cities buried beneath glass. And orbiting it, thousands of ruined ships, and was not alien, not Union human. This was the first version of you, the message said. They burned everything. They were erased by their own vengeance. We preserved this world to remind the stars. You are not unique. But you may be the last. It wasn't just a warning, it was a mirror. President Morales convened an emergency assembly. This changes everything, she said, her voice heavy. We weren't the first. There was a humanity before ours, older, more advanced, and consumed by wrath. The room stirred. Do we know if this is real? Asked one of the ministers. It doesn't matter, Morales answered. It's real enough to force a question we've been avoiding since the war ended. She paused, then said it. Are we building a civilization? Or are we building a revenge machine with no off switch? No one answered. They didn't have one. That night, Rourke stood on the dark deck of the Vengeance, now in orbit over Titan, resting like a sleeping beast. She gazed out at the black, not because it was peaceful, but because it was honest. You couldn't lie to space. It was cold, cruel, and ancient. And somewhere out there, something was watching Earth and wondering, will they break their cycle? Or become another memory in the dark? Makari approached, his face older now, lines that weren't there during the war. Scars that weren't from battle, but from watching hope twist into silence. They're calling for a summit, he said. Earth, Union, the observers. First time all three parties have agreed on anything. Rourke's jaw tightened. Location? Cather. A pause. Rourke shook her head. It's a test, I know. Will you go? He asked. I have to, she said quietly. They're not offering peace. They're offering a final choice. 2 weeks later, on a cold, forgotten planet lit by artificial stars, the summit began. Rourke arrived alone. No fleet, no AI, no fanfare. The Union sent 6 diplomats and 3 peace drones, nervous, apologetic. The observers? They were already there, waiting. The chamber was circular. No thrones, no ranks, just voices. And when Rourke stepped inside, she spoke first. No preamble. No false civility, just one line, we remember. The Union flinched. The observers did not. The lead watcher responded, then learn to remember differently, or you will remember nothing at all. The summit chamber on Cather was unlike any Rourke had seen before. It wasn't made of stone, steel, or glass. It wasn't built for power or comfort. It was carved into the black crust of the dead planet itself, a massive circle lined with shadows and whispers. No walls, no lights, just an open void overhead and the echo of voices below. At the center stood a ring of obsidian, not for ceremony, not for show, for memory, a place where the galaxy's greatest powers, the Union, the Watchers, and now humanity, came to speak not from podiums, but from pain. Rourke stood alone in her quadrant. No flags, no insignia, just the Terran seal stitched onto the shoulder of her black uniform. Behind her, no guards, no fleet, no wrath, only silence. Across from her, the Union delegates huddled like guilty children, their once proud robes now little more than costumes draped over regret. And beside them, unmoving and ageless, stood 3 watchers, beings who had no form, yet radiated more presence than armies. The Prime Watcher's voice, when it came, wasn't sound. It was a feeling, like grief unfolding in your chest. We remember you. We watched you. We warned you. Rourke didn't bow, didn't flinch. Her voice was low, steady. We remember too. You stand at the edge, said the Watcher, not of war, but of meaning. You may become what you feared, or you may step back. Union Chancellor Thilani stepped forward, his hands trembling. We came to offer reparations, he said. To Earth, for the atrocities committed. Rourke stared at him with the coldness of deep space. For you came to offer them after we had power. He swallowed. Would you have offered them if we didn't? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Rourke turned to the Watchers. Why show us that world? She asked. The other Earth, the old one, the one that burned? The Prime Watcher pulsed. Because they were like you. Because they chose vengeance without end. And vengeance is not memory. It is hunger. And hunger is never satisfied. Rourke looked up at the dark sky. We didn't start this war. We didn't invade. We didn't enslave. We retaliated. Can't now you say we're the problem? No, said the Watcher. You are the pattern. The pattern that turns pain into fire and fire into ruin. Rourke took a slow breath. The silence in the chamber wrapped around her. Then what do you want from us? She asked. Nothing. That word hung heavier than all the rest. We offer nothing. We offer no technology, no alliance, no salvation. We came only to witness what you would do, and now we ask, do you remember enough to stop? For the first time in years, Rourke hesitated, not in fear, in reflection. She remembered the siege of Arcadia, the children suffocating in broken pods. She remembered the way Earth begged, for decades, for peace while the Union signed death warrants with elegant smiles. She remembered watching human cities burn and hearing the word primitive in every whisper afterward. But she also remembered something else. Standing on the deck of the Vengeance, looking into the eyes of her crew, people who hadn't just survived, they'd come back human, not perfect, not whole, but human. And now humanity stood at a crossroads. Behind her, a galaxy terrified of their wrath. In front of her, a path where wrath would never be enough. Rourke raised her voice, not loud, but unshakable. We won't forget, and we won't forgive what was done to us. The Union shrank at her words. But we won't burn the galaxy to satisfy our ghosts. The Watchers were still. Rourke stepped into the center of the chamber, onto the obsidian ring. I will not dismantle Earth's fleets, she said. We will remain strong. We must. Union whispers filled the air. But we will not strike first, she added. We will not become hunters of shadows, or tyrants of memory. The Union stared, stunned. Rourke turned to them. But if you ever come for us again, you won't see war. You'll see the end, and she meant it, every syllable. When the summit ended, no treaty was signed, no official document filed, no ceremony held, but something larger than peace had been reached, balance. The Union understood its place, not above humanity, but beneath its mercy. And the Watchers? They vanished without another word, because the test was over. They hadn't been looking for diplomacy, they'd been looking for the cycle. And they had seen a crack in it. 6 months later, Earth was quieter, not softer, not weaker, just settled. The fleets remained in orbit. The Defense Corps drilled daily. The AI Command Corps still hummed beneath. Saturn's moons, but something had shifted. The language changed. No more retaliation fleets. They were now called Sentinels, no more Wrath algorithms. Wrath remained. But it was now part of the Sentient Guard doctrine, a protocol of defense, memory, and measured response. Earth had not forgiven, but it had chosen not to destroy. And in the void where vengeance once ruled, something fragile began to grow. Legacy on Mars. The cadet who once feared Rourke now taught others what she'd learned. Justice is a blade, she said. But if you swing it too long, your hand forgets how to open. On Europa, the engineer who doubted AI now worked with Wrath to design Ember, a new AI built not only to defend, but to listen. And on Earth, in a small field where no statues stood, Rourke visited her sister's name carved into a black stone, killed during the Union purges. She knelt beside it, fingers brushing the letters. "Vengeance got us here," she whispered. "But it can't take us further." Behind her, Wrath spoke, voice softened. "Shall I erase the command files from the war? The memories?" Rourke smiled faintly. "No, we remember. That's the point, but now, we remember to protect, not to punish." In the darkness between stars, the Watchers floated in the currents of silence. The Prime Watcher pulsed. "The cycle bends," another replied. "The fire flickers." A third, older than the rest, whispered, "They may be the first to survive their own rage." And for the first time in their long memory, they watched Earth not as a threat, but as a chance.